And I remember when I was hunting that deer, I said I was going to kill him in that 5-day window of when I last saw him. And sure enough, I killed him on the exact same day within like 100 yards of where the only time I ever saw him on the hoof. And it was just absolutely just perfect day, perfect conditions, and definitely a dream hunt.
Let's go. Let's go.
Welcome to the next episode. I'm pretty sure it's episode 8. I'm going to say 8.
I think it's 8.
I'm going to say 8. That's where we are.
Yeah.
Man, we appreciate you listening to this, joining this journey. I love to hear the comments. I know Jonny and I look at those. We respond to those. It's fun to have the chatter, get texts from friends who are friends of the pod. So keep it up. We love it. We're excited for this episode. Jonny, why don't you go ahead and introduce who we're going to be talking to later. I know you've watched a lot more of his content. I've watched some recently, and I'm stoked to have this conversation. So intro our guest, and then we'll get into all the intro stuff.
Yeah. So we got Michael Mancl coming on tonight. He's a co-owner and producer for Black Stamp Media. His channel on YouTube and on Instagram is Breaking Point TV. And I'm going to be honest, to me, he's a big deal. I mean, I really like,
yeah.
To me, he is. Like, I really love his stuff. I've been watching him for years. I just think he's an incredible guy. Love the way he carries himself. And we have some connections, which I found out, which are pretty interesting. So I'm really excited to hear from him tonight and see what we might learn, or just hear some of the stories he has about being in the industry.
Yeah, I think if you particularly dedicate a lot of time chasing Midwest whitetails, this guy's going to be a freaking wealth of knowledge. So you're going to want to listen through, and there's going to be nuggets that drop every other minute, I'm sure, while we're talking to him. So stay tuned.
Did you know that you can use AI to become a better hunter? Here's what you got to do. Our team at Huntxp has built a custom AI. We call it Crockett. And it is the combination of the power of AI and the collective wisdom of hunters for many years mashed up together and put right in your pocket, right in the field, where you can level up your hunting game. You can ask it things like, what's the best broadhead setup for my situation? What's the best day to hunt this week? All sorts of questions. You can take pictures of the snake you almost stepped on in South Dakota and say, is this a rattlesnake? That's something that actually happened to us. It's super fun. Our community's having a great time building this. We'd love for you to join in at huntxp.com. Join us.
Are you sliding into like post-season mentality? Are you like done? What are you up to now?
So I've been done, but we are not done. And we are trying to get Jude his buck. That has been the grind all year. The kid he's 9 now. He turned 9 on November 15th, and he has been so patient, has had a couple of close calls, and we're just waiting for this moment where he gets to harvest his first buck, because it's probably honestly going to mean way more to me than the 2 bucks I harvested this year, even if it's like the smallest buck you've ever seen. We've just been at it and grinding and spending time together, trying to get it done. And I want it so bad for him. I hope it happens.
Yeah. I can't wait for the text, dude. I'm gonna wherever I am, I'm just gonna be like, yeah. Someone's gonna be like,
sure.
Whatever, dude. I don't know what that was about, but
you're gonna be like, Jude, shut up, buck. And they're like, is that your kid?
Look,
and you're gonna be like,
I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Way to go. And it'll be a good day. I'm gearing up for my Hail Mary, maybe a little Christmas magic in northern Wisconsin. I've got basically 2 weekends up there. The only buck I've seen is in South Dakota, and I sent one over its back. So it's been a very hornless season for me. I've got meat in the freezer, which is fantastic. So I don't know, that late December feels hopeful because they're like a little bit more patterned. You can kind of get them on a pattern or catch them on a pattern a little bit more, but it is a little bit like fourth quarter, 50 seconds on the clock. So
it definitely is. One other thing right now too is I have heard that some of the bucks have begun starting to drop their antlers already this year.
Whoa,
so
really?
Something to be aware of. Yeah, I think it's because the growth was so good early on. Like we had such a mild year. Deer, like antler growth was like way ahead of the game this year. Like it seemed like mid-June you could see like almost full rack bucks, which was kind of crazy. So, and again, I could be way off here, just my hypothesis.
Yeah.
But then the weather was really mild. Then we had a cold snap, and I know for a fact a couple of guys have already picked up some shed. So yeah. So yeah, just be aware.
Well, the buck just needs to have it on it as I shoot it, and
as
then
you shoot it,
and then it can shed it. That's fine.
Yep.
That's fine.
Which,
I'll pick it up on the blood trail.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's okay.
If you have a story about that, anyone out there listening, share it, because I've heard several, and I've had one experience. I shot a late season buck, and I grabbed its antler to start to drag it, and I pulled its antler right off its head.
First time I saw that was on a THP episode. I think, forget the main guy shot one with his muzzle loader, went to like lift it up, like, look, he just pops it right off.
Yeah.
Never know what's going to happen late season. So
that's right.
Wish me luck. Wish me luck. All right, man. Let's do some shout outs, checking the comms here. I want to do just checking the comms. Gonna stir up a little controversy, get us a little pumped up before our guest here. But we had I don't know about you, but if you listen to the episode with Cody Kraut, I had a lot of fun interviewing that guy. He was texting us afterwards. Also a Packer fan, which is fun. We've been following the Packers with him now. But he's like, dude, I got so much more to share. I thought about all these things that I could have said. I'm like, dude, we will have you back. Like, don't worry about it. I was super impressed, had a lot of fun talking to him. But I posted a short, kind of just a brief story of him and his first, not his first buck, but he said the first buck that he felt like he really earned, that he was dialed in on, which is an awesome short. You should go find it, or just find that part of the episode. It's a great story. And I was super impressed by his approach. But then there's, dudes on the internet. Some dude just posts, pets don't count. 3 exclamation points. And then there's a face palm emoji, 5 face palm emojis.
Wow.
So
not just one.
5.
Wow.
So apparently there are people of the opinion that monster bucks in Illinois that you shoot in or around food plots should be characterized as pets. What do you think about that, Johnny?
I think any free range mature buck is certainly not a pet. And I think if you listen to the episode, I think he said, what is it? They had 80 acres or something. But I think if you listen to the episode,
70, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about using intel from the camera, going back and checking weather patterns on the specific days he got pictures to get the wind right. And he figured out that if the wind was doing a certain thing, the deer was going to enter the plot in a certain spot. And he didn't even have a stand there. He went in and hung the stand and then killed the buck that day. And I just thought, I had respect. That is amazing, because mature bucks are so smart. That's my opinion.
Far from pets. Like, initially I was like typing like 4 or 5 different responses. I'm like, no, I'm just going to let, that doesn't merit a response. But like, I think, I just don't know that I appreciate the like comparison game that happens like between like, you shot that over corn, or, oh, you've got a food plot. And it's like, some of that has merit, but at the same time, killing a mature animal, as long as it's not in a zoo or in someone's backyard or something that they're hand feeding, like, is a very challenging thing to do. And so I'm just like, why even and it's freaking so much fun. So like, there are very little circumstances outside of poaching or breaking the law that I would criticize someone for, putting that much effort in on something. Definitely not a pet. Cody Kraut, he's a legend. He's awesome. We'll have him back. There you go. That's what's
He's a buck
happening in the
magnet.
comments. He's a buck
He's a
magnet.
buck magnet.
Despite the 5 face palm emojis from random guy on the internet. We got you, Cody. Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate everything going on. We've dropped a few fun videos of Jonny's fam dropping some huge bucks in Kansas. If you didn't catch that, dang, they grown big down there, dude. Those are some awesome bucks. Fun, short little video. My favorite is Jonny's dad's demeanor when he walks up on this like giant Kansas buck. He's just like, "Up, he's a dandy. Found him over there." It's just like classic.
Yeah, it's when you shot as many big bucks as him, I guess. No, he's just very soft-spoken and quiet.
Yeah.
And he is very modest. But I did not score it with him. He scored it roughly, and he figured,
yeah, man,
it maybe 154. I don't know, but it's a big buck.
150s, 160s, and it was beauty. All those bucks were super nice. So,
absolutely,
Jonny, it's time. Let's bring Michael in. Do you want to introduce him?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are super fortunate to be joined by Michael Mancl tonight. He is the executive producer and co-owner of Black Stamp Media. He helps run the YouTube channel Breaking Point TV. And we figured out we got some pretty cool connections, but he's a guy I've followed for a long time. So I'm be honest, I'm pretty thrilled to have him on here. Michael, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself more formally.
Yeah, sure. Mike Mancl, grew up in central Wisconsin, lived there pretty much my whole life, grew up hunting, fishing, all that good stuff. And I really just got into filming, videography, photography during high school. Kind of that's when the interest, I guess, started, or actually just before that even. Our family always had camcorders lying around growing up and really got into videoing hunts. Yeah, at an early age, kind of how with turkey season back home, I used to be only one tag a year type of deal. So me and my dad would go hunting together all the time, and one of us would tag a bird, the other one would grab the camera and filming each other, and then it just kind of started evolving, taking friends out and just not wanting that turkey season to end. And then kind of expanding off of that, just got into deer hunting, met my business partner Brennan Nading in college, and then everything kind of just took off from there. Started our business, Black Stamp Media, in 2012, and then same year we started producing the show The Breaking Point. We're just filming our 12th season right now, and we haven't looked back. It's been a crazy journey to see kind of where things started from to where they are now. A few years ago, I moved down to Iowa, me and my wife, and we've been down here since, and it's just been a dream job.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of like, I feel like everyone who grew up, I'm just going to say Wisconsin, but I'm sure it's larger than that. Everyone who grew up hunting, I think, always dreams of like, oh, it'd be awesome to film hunts. And then I know I've had that thought of like, oh, it'd be sweet to make that a living, but you're actually doing it, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I got to say one more thing, since we're all from Wisconsin, we are terrible at scheduling because the Packers are currently playing as we film this right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, do we need to reschedule? But I would never do that to Mike.
That's all right. I got the game paused right now. I watched it until we literally came on, so I'm not going to miss anything.
I literally just threw my phone across the room because I'm like, I'm not even going to tempt myself to look at the score. I'm going to I'm going to go back.
So let it be known, all of us are, I have it recording upstairs too, so all of us are going to watch the game after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, scheduling error on our part.
That's
time.
all
Thanks
good.
For being flexible.
It's all good.
You kind of talked about it. So you mentioned how you got your start in filming. That was one of the things I was going to ask you. So thanks for filling us in. But I think I stumbled upon your page, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and something like that. And the episode, I think, that really got me, and this was before I actually knew that we had any connection at all, but was the Lefty Saga from season 5.
Yeah.
It seemed like that one really was a really, really special one for you. And I feel like I got to, I don't know, I felt like I was kind of living that hunt with you, which is, I think, what you guys probably aim to do when you're producing something, is to take viewers on a story with you, and you did such a good job of that. But can you kind of talk to us a little bit about what you recall with from that hunt and that experience?
Yeah. So that whole experience. So back in Wisconsin, our family has a couple parcels. They're right next to each other. And that's where I have done pretty much all cut my teeth on archery hunting and deer hunting in general. Shot my first deer on those properties, and so pretty much any buck I shoot off of them is just super special to me, just because of all the work that we put in. And I started deer hunting. This is my 24th season. So when I first started hunting back in 2000, like, to shoot a 2-year-old deer in that area, you were like the talk of the town. So like when we started managing for deer back then, people just thought you were crazy. Like, you're never gonna get these deer to 4, 5, 6 years old. Like, it's just not gonna happen in that area. Just as the years went on, we started to see more of these older age class bucks, and I shot my first, kind of rewinding before that one, I shot my first really good mature deer back in 2000, I think it was 10, when I was in college, or right out of college, or my last year of college, something like that. And that was, like, at the time, probably the biggest deer in that area killed age-wise and good chance rack-wise. And it just kind of slowly grew up, grew more and more every year after that. So, like, shooting a mature deer off my home property, like, whether it be Lefty in 2017, and then I killed baby splits in, I think it was 21. Like, and he was 7.5, Lefty was 6.5. I mean, you know how it is in Wisconsin. Just to get a deer to 4 and 5 is an extreme challenge, but to get them even, 6, 7 years old, like, that's less than 1% chance, right? And like, so like those deer, regardless of what the score are, like, they are my most precious bucks out of any of the deer I've shot. Just to see, like, even the management side of our property, not even just passing deer up, but the work that we put into timber harvest and, putting in trails in our property, filtering deer. Because, like, the property that I hunted back home, there's not a lot of contour to the land. It's a lot of just popple woods, tag alders, square block chunks. There's not a lot of things like funnel deer down. So, like, you got to get pretty creative up there when it comes to, especially archery hunting, getting these deer in bow range. And I learned a lot, like, over the years hunting on that property. And it's, some of the things that I've learned, I'm able to take, anywhere else across the country to hunt whitetails. But yeah, I mean, Lefty in 17, when I shot him, like, that was kind of the culmination of all the work that we did, finally paying off and killing one of those big mature deer on our property. And to do it with a bow was the most special one, probably out of all the bucks I had. I had pictures of that deer since he was a 2-year-old. So when he got to 4 years old, I actually shot a buck early in September that year. So I didn't have a buck tag, but I was just out bow hunting that year. And I had him come by me at like 25 yards. And he was probably, at that time, he was probably pushing 150s as a 4-year-old, which, I mean, one of the biggest deer I've ever let walk.
You're probably grateful that you didn't have a tag, right? Because you're like, probably would have sent one right through
for sure.
Those lungs.
Oh, yeah. So then, in 5, he kind of up and vanished. Like, if I remember right, we didn't have many pictures of him. He came back the next year. Okay, I remember now. I had pictures of him as a 5-year-old, and then I think I had some pictures of him earlier in that year, or when he was 5. Never had a picture of him, like, all season. And then the following year, early October, he showed up, and was, I mean, almost the exact same size-wise of the deer. But once he showed up, like, he pretty much was just living on our property a good majority of the time. And I remember when I was hunting that deer, I said I was going to kill him in that 5-day window of when I last saw him. And sure enough, I killed him on the exact same day within like 100 yards of where the only time I ever saw him on the hoof. And it was just absolutely just perfect day, perfect conditions, and definitely a dream hunt.
It's so awesome because that was the episode I remember that kind of hooked me on you guys, you specifically, and thinking like, man, I just love the way this guy carries himself. I love what he's doing. But I remember I actually rewatched it a couple of days ago because I was like, man, I gotta like recall that hunt because that was the one that got me. And it's really cool because the day you kill him, who was filming you? Was it Brendan or was it someone else? I don't know.
A buddy of ours that filmed with us at the time, his name was Joey Scott, and he actually filmed me a lot that season. And yeah, I remember what I said. I want to just shoot him and be done with it because
you were. Yeah, it was like you were. Well, I mean, kind of ironically, like the title of your show, you were like at your breaking point with this flock.
Yeah,
and you're like, I just want it to be over. Like you're like you look at the camera and you're like, let's go kill Lefty or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then you shoot him and you're like kind of beside yourself in your tree. And he says to you, do you remember what you said in the truck? And you're like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
You were just so excited.
Kind of just blackout. Yeah.
Well, we've all been there.
Definitely not one of my prouder shots as an archer, but man, it just, that whole situation happened so fast. And I got very fortunate. I hit him high, but I caught, I must have just caught a high rib and obviously spined him, and was lucky enough to get a follow-up shot on him and finish the job. But I can just picture that deer still coming straight in. You just see horns coming through the tag alders,
Yeah. Well, the reality is if you archery hunt long enough, that stuff's going to happen. But another cool thing picking up from your story here, you said people said you were crazy at the time for trying to manage deer on your property. I think, like you say, in Wisconsin, it does seem difficult to do that. I have a 50-acre chunk, and I've been guilty of saying plenty of times, like, man, I can't let a 2.5-year-old walk because you just can't manage it. But this piece that you're talking about and the area you're talking about is a testament that, yeah, some of them might not make it, but if you put in the time and the work and you're diligent, discipline, like you can grow some mature deer,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's still some good deer up there. I've noticed the last few years it's kind of been on a downturn, unfortunately, just for a bunch of reasons, but I don't want to get into. But
yeah, sure.
Some of the state management stuff, but yeah, it's sad to see because I mean, at the time we probably had one of the better deer hunting areas in that region, that county for sure. But there's just big influx of hunters. I used to never see hardly any archery hunters around, and now you see guys everywhere. Not so many deer hunting pressure, but archery hunting pressure is just skyrocketed.
Yeah. So you guys have this magical place in North Dakota, and tell me if I get the name wrong, but you guys call it Dingkota. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me a little bit tell us a little bit about how that place came about? And because it just seems like, honestly, it seems like the most fun deer camp guys retreat. It's like a 1-room shack with a pizzazz pizza maker.
Yeah, it is probably
pizzazz pizza maker. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is one of the coolest deer camps that I think probably exist out there. So back when we started the show, me and Brennan were the first ones to really go out there out of any of us. And we deer hunted out there, me and him, and then a few years later, as we kind of acquired more ground and found some more areas to hunt, we started bringing some of their guys that were filming with us. And for probably the first 4 or 5 years, we just stayed at one of the the lodges out there. There's pretty much every single town out in North Dakota has some sort of little rinky-dink lodge for housing hunters in the fall or people. There's not like actual hotels around there, so that's where we stayed. And at the time, me and Brennan we don't travel out there nearly as much as what we used to. I mean, the first few years we were going out there 11, 12 weekends out of the year, out of the fall, starting from September. I mean, we would do probably 5 or 6 trips in September, October in North Dakota, and then late season, it would be most of the month of December. We'd be going out there, and we were working full-time jobs then, doing shift work, and we'd go out there on a day or two and then drive around, come right back, and go back to work. And, doing that through the whole fall, you start to acquire a pretty good bill for lodging costs. So we just kind of, we're brainstorming, and we just said that it'd be nice to find somewhere where we can just put a camp up, whether it be something we build or something we can haul there. And we were fortunate enough to get to know some really good landowners out there. And I mean, we've known them for 12 plus years now. So like they literally treat us like we're their kids. And we've built a really, really great relationship with them. But at the time we kind of pitched the idea to them about, maybe if they were okay with us buying a little piece of their land to build something or whatever, or, however we can make it work. And, they would just told us like, well, why don't you just build it right here by the barnyard? So we were able to haul out an old camper that was gutted down to the frame, and the guys built it on that, and we hooked right into the power for the house and everything, and that's kind of how everything started with Camp Dingkota. But I think 2017 was the first year that we had that, I believe. Yeah. So it's going on 6-7 years now. So
it seems like that's maybe like some sort of mecca. Like every hunter should just go in and take a look at this place sometime. Just kidding. We won't tell everyone where it is or anything. But no, but it's just, this is like my family does this, right? Like we have like a family hunting shack, and that's what it's about, right? It's about camaraderie. Yeah. It's about doing stuff you love with people you love. And man, when those episodes are always just such a riot to me when you guys are out there. And I think there's an episode of you guys actually building it too. But yeah, I love the silly little things. Like you guys have tallies for how many frozen pizzas you've eaten, which by this point must be like, oh gosh, 1,000. I don't know. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
I want to say it's easily 300 in the 300s.
It's wild.
Yeah,
like
and almost all of them, with the exception of a few, are Jack's pizzas. That's like the only ones that we eat out there.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much, I would say 50% of what we eat out there is pizza, frozen pizza. Yeah. And we got like a charcoal grill and stuff. But when especially late season, when it gets 20 below zero, not many people are wanting to go outside and man the grill.
No.
So it's usually pizza or crock pots cooking. So
yeah. I love your other tradition out there too of like you guys, you take your broadheads and you nail them in a board. And I actually started doing that with my kids. My boys have recently started hunting. They've harvested some deer, and so each year now I have this plank in my back room in my basement, and we nail our broadheads in there, which I just think is a really cool thing. And I picked that up from you guys.
Yeah, we got that from somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but we saw it on a hunt that they were on or something. And we're like, that's cool. We should do that out there. I've seen it also too. I can't remember what it was. It was someone was hunting Alaska, and when they came back from their trip, it was like a local bar that wherever they flew into or whatever. And you actually went to the tavern, and there's like a pole, and you shot your arrow. If you shot something, you shot your arrow into the like pole.
Okay.
And you signed that day. Like it was pretty cool, I thought. But no, yeah, we got that from somebody. I can't remember where we got it from, but yeah, that place is pretty special to all of us on the crew. Most of the guys have been out there at some point. Like you said, the whole deer camp. I mean, there's just not a lot of deer camps there nowadays. And like growing up, we had our family deer camps in Wisconsin. They've all kind of just faded away. So it's cool to bring that back somewhere, where we can go out there for a few days out of the fall and kind of relive that.
I've never hunted in North Dakota. I've hunted in South Dakota for mule deer, but what's different about out there? Because my understanding is you do a little bit. Do you hunt from the ground? Are you spot and stalking a little bit, or do you still use kind of the traditional Midwest methods where you're at in North Dakota?
It's fairly traditional Midwest, I would say. I mean, early season we're hunting out of tree stands. We have some ground blind setups if the situation comes up where there's just not a tree to get into, which out there's not many trees. But we also, like late season, we exclusively hunt on the ground because it's absolutely I mean, the last couple winters have been mild, but most of the time it's way too cold to even consider wanting to be in a tree. So being in a ground blind, you can be, 10 to 15 degrees warmer out of the elements, makes it a little bit more enjoyable. One of the biggest things I would say, like compared to hunting the Midwest, though, is when we first started going out there, we were thinking we needed to find, timber or river bottoms and things like that to where you typically would find deer in the Midwest. As we kind of started hunting more and more out there, we were realizing like we'd set up in these timber strips and things like that, and the deer would be coming out of the marshes. And I'm like, well, why ain't the deer coming out of the timber? That's just kind of just dependent on the area you're in there, but like they don't bed in some of the traditional areas that you see in other parts of the country. That's really the main way that we've had to adapt out there is just getting used to like these deer can literally use anything for cover, whether it's CRP, timber, marsh. Like they have like their will to survive out there is unlike any other deer that across the country. They go through some of the most harsh conditions possible. It amazes me sometimes seeing the lack of food out there late season, like that these deer sometimes make it through the winter. It blows my mind.
So you mentioned, can I ask a question, Johnny?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned adapting, which is a huge asset in any hunter as they progress. And you've had, did you say it's your 24th season hunting? So I'm curious, 24? So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are things that you maybe started off and were like, this is a staple of what it means to kill a deer? And now as you've progressed through your career, you're like, I don't pay attention to that stuff as much anymore. Or there's things that I wasn't paying attention to back then that are super high on my list now.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say those are?
Things that I used to pay attention to that I don't really as much anymore is scent elimination. I used to be like OCD, spraying everything, washing everything, you name it, every sort of spray that's out on the market. Like I have certain sprays that I use that I believe in, but like using like the scent-free wash for your clothes, like I just use regular wash now, just whatever regular Tide or whatever, we use. I can't remember what we even have at the house, but you used to spend all this money on things like wash stuff for your clothes, and I just started finding out over the years like it just seemed to never. I mean, deer can still get you when they want to get you. Well, if the wind and the thermals are in their favor, they're going to get you just about every single time. I've seen where certain products do help fool their nose to where they can't quite figure out what it is or what's going on, which can allow you either to, get a little bit more time for a shot or not quite tip off that buck if he gets downwind of you. But over the years, I just learned especially a mature buck, if he gets downwind of you, there's absolutely no way you're going to, 99% of the time, you're not going to fool his nose and he's going to pick you off. They put all this time, money, and energy into certain products that are not going to be that big of a reward. When I feel like practicing my skills as an archer is going to benefit me in shooting more big bucks than using all these crazy contraptions for scent elimination. And then your other question was like something that I didn't do then that I do now. Let me think for a sec. I had one, and then I kind of went down the whole scent.
No worries, man.
Scent trail. Okay, so I guess it's something I did do, kind of went away from, and now I'm coming back to. But like when I first started hunting, was a lot of just pretty much, tree stand hunting on the family property. Most of the stuff back then was just hunting out of wooden stands. Didn't really get into the climbing game and tree stand game until I was in about high school, college time. And then I hunted a lot out of a climber. I had a lone wolf climber at the time. Hunted that, a lot on our family property, and then also took it on public land. But then once we started filming, got more into just hunting set stands, double set stands. It's just more convenient for filming purposes. And that's primarily how I hunted for, 7-8 years. And then a few years ago, we started a relationship with Tethered, and like that just absolutely changed like how I hunt. Like I do, especially living down here now. I used to hunt, back in Wisconsin, 95% of my hunting was on private land. Moving down here where we had, no starting off, I got a couple permission farms now, but starting off, it was all public land hunting to kind of, until, we were fortunate enough to acquire a couple pieces we could bow hunt. But, I had to figure out different ways to not have to carry all this stuff in the woods, especially when you're hauling two people, two stands, all the camera equipment, like that adds up. And in no time, you're hauling 50 pounds of gear every time. And I'm trying to usually get away as far as I can from people. So
And quietly.
and quietly.
So it's a lot of clunky stuff to be hauling in the woods.
So like, it was just kind of perfect timing for us when we started working with Tethered, because it just made my setup so much lighter. I was able to hunt areas that I never would have been able to hunt down here, with just hauling, regular tree stands in. Just made it a lot simpler. I'm able to get in the trees that I normally wouldn't, and you can just kind of get a lot more creative with your setups. So like I kind of had a transition of, like I said, going into, hunting climbers and a little bit of mobile hunting, got away from it, and now I'm getting a lot more back into it. Or I probably 80% of my hunts I'm hunting out of a saddle now, unless I'm hunting one of my permission farms. I do a little bit of urban hunting down here, and that's all I use pretty much for urban hunting is a saddle.
I saddle hunt, and I will take my saddle into my dad's stands in northern Wisconsin, and I will sit behind his stands to put the tree between me and wherever the buck's going to come.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten so comfortable with it, and the ability to be on the other side of the tree is just a huge asset in and of itself.
Yeah.
To me anyways.
I started doing that actually the last couple of years too. Even like in some of my set stands, I would wear my saddle in. And then I can still like lengthen my tether out. I'll sit down if I want to sit down. But if I want to, be facing the other way, or if I need to like shift around the tree for a shot, I can just literally, I've shot some deer before where I'm not even on my saddle platform in the stand. I literally just move my weight all the way around the tree, and I'm just knees up against the tree, shoot around it almost. So you're able to get some shots off that you normally wouldn't be able to out of a traditional hang on.
Good stuff, man.
So one thing that and I think it was this year, but something new you tried, you got a recurve going this year. Was that this year?
Yeah.
So you harvested your first buck with a recurve this year, and it was a really nice buck. Was that out in North Dakota?
Yeah. So it's kind of been a lifelong goal of mine ever since I got into archery hunting. My second bow, my first bow was a PSE Nova, but my first, what I call real bow, was a Hoyt X-Tech, and this was back in 06. That's kind of when I got on the Hoyt bandwagon. I shot them for quite a few years before we had a show or anything. And, at the time, I'd get the product catalogs every year. I'd look at the new bows, and they always had the recurves in there. And I'm like, man, it'd be cool to have one of these bows someday. And it's just something I've always wanted. Well, just fortunate enough here a couple years ago, we started working with Hoyt, and I just said this year, I'm like, I need to have a recurve. I bought one off of eBay a few years prior, kind of just get my feet wet and dabble in with getting comfortable shooting a recurve to see how well I could shoot it. And I did all right with it. I didn't shoot it enough religiously to get like serious enough with it, but I kind of learned, I could group a decent pattern, but I just needed a little bit more draw weight. And the recurve I was shooting didn't really have enough what I thought oomph to get it done. Got one of the Hoyt recurves this year, and it was kind of mind blowing, like, cause I never thought there's that much to a recurve until I started watching YouTube videos and like how these guys set them up, and it was just absolutely mind blowing. Like what some of these guys do with their recurves, like they can get more technical than a compound when you're figuring in your arrow setups and bear shaft tuning them and setting up your brace heights and all that. So it was pretty crazy, but I shot it. This summer was kind of busy summer for us. Just we bought the new house and had a lot of other things with life going on. So the first half of the summer I didn't shoot it as much as I wanted to, and eventually it got to be like early July. I'm like, hey, if you're gonna say, like, I was saying all year, like, I'm gonna shoot a buck with it, and I planned on going to North Dakota because if I screwed up on one out there, I at least wouldn't feel too bad about it. But if I couldn't quite bring myself taking it to the woods in Iowa quite yet.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so I'm like, July hit, and I said I got to start shooting if I'm going to do this seriously. So I started picking it up, and I got it set up, got shot every night. Was shooting, 10 to 20 arrows, building my strength up, just working on my form and everything. I felt confident going into like my hunt, like I could get it done 20 yards or less. I did shoot a little bit at 25, but from 20 to 25 with a recurve, your arrow can drop off quite a bit. Shot a little bit out of my saddle to make sure I was comfortable with that also going into my hunt. And I thought I'd have a chance at a buck. I told myself I wasn't going to be extremely picky. I wanted to shoot something respectable, but I wasn't going to be overly picky with shooting a buck with a recurve. And just happened to get extremely lucky and killed like one of our top few bucks that we had on camera. It was the second day of our hunt. We had a 5-day hunt, or 5 or 6 days we were going to be out there, and kill him on the second night. It was,
and he didn't go far. He didn't go far at all.
No,
Yeah.
I shot him at, I think, 12, 13 yards, and he only went like 60 yards piled up, and it was a complete pass through. Like it was freaking sweet. that absolutely just hooked me on hunting with a recurve. I actually did take it out once in Iowa this year on urban, and I had a pretty good encounter with a nice buck on my urban spot. I actually tested. So like with urban, we have to test out with the equipment we're going to be using. I tested out with my compound prior to season, and then after I shot my buck in North Dakota, the recurve, I'm like, well, I'm just going to test with it just to see if I can shoot good enough so I can use it. And was fortunate enough to get certified with it and took it out once this year and had a close call, but was on a buck that wanted to just give another year. But definitely will have it out again at some point.
Is the certification you got to shoot like a tennis ball at 20 or something like that?
No, it's 20 arrows, and the pattern you got to hit is roughly about a pie plate. So you do 10 arrows at 20 yards, 10 arrows at 15, I believe it is, something like that. But it's nothing too difficult. Most guys should be able to pass it, but I know a lot, like every place is different. Every city has different testing standards and stuff, but that's what they had here.
So you mentioned that you weren't quite sure you wanted to take it out in Iowa, and this year you shot a really nice buck in Iowa, and it was not with your recurve. That was a pretty sweet hunt too.
Yeah, so when we moved down here, I spent a couple years shed hunting a certain area, and there's a river that goes through it, and I was like, I just would love to hunt some of this stuff, but you need a boat to access it. I had a John boat back home. I've had it since I was in high school, and I never had a motor for it. Usually, like, how it is when you're young and broke, you have a buddy that has a motor, so he brings the motor, you bring the boat, and you slap it on and go. We used to use a carp shooting all the time, so that's kind of what we did for years. Is he'd bring his motor, I'd bring my boat, and we'd go carp shooting or fishing or whatever. But last year, a buddy of mine actually gifted me a boat motor from one of his family members, and I don't want to say the brand, but didn't have the best luck with it. Ended up taking it in later that year to get it worked on, and took it to Bass Pro. They said they had it all up and running how it was supposed to, and we went to go do some scouting this year with it in October. It was actually like Halloween. We had a really warm weather, warm front end of October here, and I'm like, well, let's go out and try and get some cameras out or do some scouting here. And We loaded up the boat, got the motor on it, took it out, fired up like second pull. Everything was running great. Got out there, got some cameras out and some spots we thought were going to be really good. And got back in the boat motor wouldn't start. So we ended up, luckily we were upstream, but we ended up paddling. It was like over a mile back to the boat ramp. And by the time we got back, I'm like, I'm getting a motor that's going to be reliable. And but I didn't want to spend like stupid amount of money on buying like a Mercury or Yamaha, whatever, for it, like a couple $1,000s. She's like, I'm gonna look to see, like, Amazon got everything. They gotta have some sort of boat motors on Amazon. Sure enough, I look on Amazon, they had like I think I got a 6.5 horse. It's called like a Huntxp. It's like a Chinese motor. It was $550.
There you go.
Scooped that thing up and got a trolling motor on there for a couple $100. By the time it was all said and done, I think I got the whole setup for less than $1,000. And
there you go.
And got the lights all on there and everything. Got the boat set up or the motor set up, and things started on like second, third pull. It ran absolutely amazing. The few times I used it this year's, but we got in there and I had some really good encounters. The first night we went in, we seen 9 different bucks. It was just crazy night. Nothing mature, but just like, I got to get back in here. I was getting some good deer on camera and a lot of like midday movement, really atypical deer movement.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen a ton of rub sign in there, and yeah, we actually went in that morning. I killed, and I had to get down at noon because I had to get home to let our dog out. And it was 11:55, and I told Hayden, our intern who was filming me, I'm like, these deer have been we've been getting them on camera between 10 and 2. Like, we have to stay here till 12. Like, we have to, every second we can be in this tree, we got to stay here. And at 11:55, we had a doe come walking past us at like 70 yards, and the buck I shot was 100 yards behind her. And he wasn't like chasing her or, anything. He must have been just scent trailing her, and she wasn't ready. He got in the woods by us, and he actually was going to go away from us, and he was heading toward the scrape that I actually had him on camera a lot, and he got behind some trees, and I popped off a couple grunts at him, and he just turned around and come on a dead sprint right to the tree. I shot him at probably like 15 yards. But it was such a cool hunt. Like, I don't know, he just one of those like shooting one and hauling it out with the boat, just like a dream hunt. It was pretty cool.
What's your
That's the one.
Hang cow? What was it called?
Huntxp.
Yeah,
I think Cow. That's the one that you watched die, right? Like, did you hit it?
Frontal
did
shot.
You hit him in the frontal
Yeah.
shot, and then he just went down, and there was other bucks in the area while he was dying.
Yeah, we
right?
actually.
If I remember.
Yeah, right after I shot him, I forgot about that. He ran out and he bedded down at like 100 yards from us. Pretty open timber we were in, so we saw him bed up. I ended up shooting him right in the heart, but he ended up bedding up, and then like a few minutes later, it was a pretty good up and coming deer, come through there, came to like 30, 40 yards. So we had a really good sit that morning too. Seen one other really good 8-pointer. I'm really looking forward to that spot again next year, because I think there's gonna be some good deer in there again.
Mike, I want to ask you about your faith, if you're comfortable with that, man. My daytime gig, I got a lot of gigs, but one of them is I pastor a small church in Minneapolis, and I'm always trying to tell folks that are followers of Jesus that look at me and like, hey, you're a pastor, so you have a natural ministry. And I'm like, yes, but it's not like that. Like, people I respect are people who are chasing their passion and integrating their faith in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched you as much as Jonny, but even from that video, I could tell as a follower of Jesus, I'm like, this is a part of his faith. It's not just a hobby he does. This is like, this is a part of what he cares about beyond just being in the woods, beyond just chasing these whitetails. So as much as you're comfortable on this podcast, we're Christians. We love Jesus. We're not a Christian podcast, Christian company, but we're not afraid to talk about what we care about. And we sense that I mean, you demonstrate that in what you produce.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if there's a question in there other than I just want to say I admire your ability to have integrity and to let that part of who you are just be a normal part of what it means to be an outdoorsman. So can you talk a little bit about that journey of like, what do I share? Like, how does my faith integrate into my work that I do, that I care about?
I actually really appreciate you asking that. So it's kind of interesting journey, I guess you could say, just with my faith and sharing my faith with what I do. Back when we started the show, I mean, you've probably seen some of the shows on TV that are faith-based hunting shows. It was growing up, there was one of the things that just irked me. It's like it drove. I don't know why, I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic church, but I love being out in the woods and in God's creation. But like, I just couldn't understand the people who turned a 30-minute hunting show into everything about God, and it drove me absolutely crazy. And when we first started the show, I just said, I wanted our hunting show to be about hunting. I don't want to have, and it wasn't that I was not wanting to express my faith, but I just didn't want to, like, I guess, force it on people and just make it more about the hunt, if that makes sense. And then, I had a really crazy transition in my faith here a few years ago. It kind of all started, I guess, when I have a heart disease. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but I got diagnosed with a heart disease back in 2018. And that kind of slowly started my faith journey. I became more and more, into praying and just trying to learn more about my faith and just reading more scripture. But it really honestly wasn't until we moved to Iowa where it was like a deep dive into my faith journey. God's plan is it's unbelievable how he works. We bought this house down here, and our realtor at the time, who's now a really great friend of ours, he asked us, and both me and my wife grew up in the Catholic Church, and we were just kind of we were in a point in our spiritual journey where we were wanting to get something more out of our faith. We just felt like we weren't getting enough. And it's just kind of, you Jonny, you obviously know my sister, and you probably, I don't know if you know my other sister, like what they do, and they were just huge followers of Jesus, and growing up through college, like they were always wanting me to get into crew and stuff like that, and I'm not afraid to say it. I was, in my college years, I was a big sinner and did a lot of things that I'm not proud of, and I just, for some reason at that time, I didn't want to go down that path with them. But when we moved to Iowa here, our realtor, he asked us, he's like, what church do you guys go to? And I'm like, well, we don't really have a place down here yet. And he just offered one of the churches that he went to go. It was just, first time we ever went there, it was just an unbelievable experience. Like the people, and the message that we got out of everything, and like both, basically me and my wife, shortly after that, we're basically saved again. And, our lives are totally different now compared to what they were a few years ago. And we, now it's crazy because, like I said in the beginning, I used to not want to put God and my faith in what I did for a living. And now everything I do, I want to glorify him and give him credit for everything I do, and just the ways that he works through, like I talked about in that show, like there's a lot of stuff we were going through with my health this year, and we fostered a couple girls this year, and a few days prior to me shooting that deer, they actually got moved to a new home. So we were just going through a lot of rough things at that time, and hunting was a place for me to kind of get away and have kind of those conversations with God about things going on in my life. And my season at that point had been a struggle, just like everything else that was going on in my life. So when everything kind of culminated together, like I kept telling him through that whole process that, when this does happen, I'm going to do everything I can to give you the credit for it. And when it worked out the way it did, like, it was just, there was no way that you could write that up on your own.
Man, yeah, thanks for sharing that. That resonates. That episode is really, is really cool because like that was right after when I watched the episode. It was right after I reached out to you, and I, we had been sending a couple messages back and forth. But when I saw that episode, it was like we never like need to harvest an animal. We are blessed every time we do. But it seemed like you really needed that in that moment.
Yeah.
Based on the circumstances, you had just had surgery, right? Like you were about to go in for surgery.
Yeah, I had surgery on the 25th. So I was like 10 days out from surgery. And pretty much once I have that surgery, I still like the day right after Christmas, I can start hunting again. So, I'm for a month here, I'm not able to hunt, or I'm on like a 10-pound, 15-pound weight restriction. So every day was getting closer and closer to that. And you could just see it like, I hope I can make something happen here before all this happens. And it's definitely a hunt I'll never forget.
Yeah, man. God is good. That's cool. It's been awesome to get to chat with you, and get to know you more as a dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Been watching you for a long time, and to be able to sit down and chat with you is kind of surreal, and see how down to earth and humble and awesome you are. And yeah, the man of God you are. That's pretty cool. So thanks for doing this for us.
Well, I appreciate, the invite to come on here. Like I said, usually when anyone reaches out, whether it be for like a podcast or things like that, I try and help them out because, we've all had to have a start somewhere in this, and just try and help out anyone any way I can. I've seen other people in the industry that don't necessarily aren't as helpful. When we were making our way up in the works, I always kind of said, that's not what I want to be about. When I do get an opportunity to do what I love to do, and if anyone needs a helping hand to try and grow their business or grow their brand, I'm going to try and always do what I can to assist in that.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we do. We're not even sure where we're going. We're just having fun, trying something new, and
yeah, who knows?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, we're just having a good time. So.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, anytime, man. If you guys want to get on and chat again, I'd be glad to do it again.
Dude, he is so cool.
There it was.
That was awesome.
He's awesome, man. Super chill. So genuine.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
It's good. Anything you're taking away from that conversation that you learned, or?
Yeah, I think I guess just doing away with you can't manage a deer herd, or you can't grow mature bucks in certain parts of the state. Of his story of what they did on their property, starting way back, is pretty cool because the bucks he's harvested off there that are on the show, they are big mature bucks. Like the one was 6.5, the one was 7.5.
Dude, that's nuts.
It is.
When he said it, I was like, that is nuts for anywhere in Wisconsin for a buck to survive 6 or 7 years.
Anywhere in the country. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's, wild. Yeah, that Lefty episode is really a cool episode. Anyway. Yeah. That was super fun to chat with him.
I was going to do an outro and then it didn't.
Do it.
And then I cut you off and it was horrible. Hey, you. Thanks for sticking around for that. That was an awesome conversation. We hope to keep bringing you some great stuff. Stay tuned. Appreciate it. Maybe drop in the comments something that you loved about this episode or what you would like to ask Mike some other time. And if you have not checked out, if you're like me and you're just getting on the Breaking Point TV train, join me. It's a fun train to be on. Check out all their stuff and stay tuned with what we got going on. I'll put a little teaser out there for those who are still listening. I have just been going to town on the merch. I've got some really fun stuff coming out in 2025. I've got a hopper of some cool things coming. So keep an eye out. We've got a couple hunts we're still working on, a couple of hunts from the community that are coming in, and then a couple that I'm just dragging my feet on. So stay tuned on our channel and like, subscribe, hang out, keep it rolling. Thanks.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. I'm JD, founder and crew member of the Huntxp team. We're so grateful that you took time to watch this video, and hopefully it's helping you level up your hunting game. That's what we and our community is all about, and we want to invite you into this growing community of hunters that's all about leveling up each other's hunting game. So the first thing you can do is like and subscribe, but even more than that, we got some fun things going on over at our website, huntxp.com. We'd love for you to join our community there and stay connected with what we're doing, what we're working on, and we'd love to hear about what you're after. So thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time.